Wait.
The pressure is finally starting to close in on Joe McNamara. After everything that happened in the first 3 episodes, Lioness Season 3 is no longer dealing with a threat that feels distant or theoretical. The Russian network has made its presence known. Joe's identity has been compromised, and the McNamara family is starting to understand just how dangerous her job can become. Now Episode 4, titled Murder Hornets, looks ready to push the story into a much more urgent phase. The confirmed synopsis describes a frantic hunt as the team races against time, while Neil struggles with growing fear at home. Meanwhile, the episode photos bring Cruz back alongside Tucker and other members of the tactical team, suggesting that the story is about to move away from pure intelligence gathering and back toward boots-on-the-ground action. And that could be a major shift, because Joe has spent the previous episode learning just how deeply the Russian network has penetrated American institutions. Now it appears she's ready to do something about it. Joe is about to shake the Russian network. The biggest thing to watch in Episode 4 is Joe's plan. After sitting down with Alexander Balakin and learning just how extensive the Russian intelligence operation is, Joe realizes that simply identifying a network isn't enough. She needs to know who's connected to it. More importantly, she needs to know who reacts when the network is threatened. That's where the title Murder Hornets becomes particularly interesting. Joe appears to be preparing to disturb the Russian operation, and then watch what happens. It's a dangerous strategy, because once you start shaking an intelligence network, you don't necessarily know what is going to come crawling out. Someone could panic. Someone could run. Someone could try to destroy evidence. Or someone could make a move against the CIA. And that's exactly what Joe wants to find out. The problem is that the people reacting may not be sitting overseas. They could already be inside the United States. And after the revelations about Russian assets operating within American politics, that makes this operation much more dangerous than a standard Lioness mission. The team is heading back into action. Episode 4 also appears to bring Cruz Manuelos back into the center of the tactical operation. The photos show Cruz alongside Tucker and other members of the team, which is significant after the more interrogation-heavy events of Episode 3. Cruz has been through a lot already. She survived dangerous missions, dealt with the psychological consequences of the work, and developed a complicated relationship with Captain Josefina Carrillo. But Cruz is still one of Joe's most valuable assets. When things become physical, when an operation needs someone who can move quickly and adapt under pressure, Cruz is exactly the kind of person Joe wants nearby. So seeing her back with Tucker could mean that Joe's plan has moved into its next stage. The intelligence has been gathered. The target has been identified. Now somebody has to act. And that's where the tactical team comes in. Tucker could have a big role. Tucker's presence is another detail worth paying attention to. He's one of the people Joe trusts when things get complicated. After the attack on Joe's home, and everything that followed, the team knows they aren't dealing with amateurs. The Russians have already demonstrated that they can find people who are supposed to be protected. That means Tucker and the rest of the team aren't simply going after a target. They're walking into a situation where the other side knows that the CIA is looking. That's a completely different kind of operation. Joe's strategy could be to deliberately create movement within the Russian network, and then use Tucker's team to follow whoever reacts. If that's the plan, the mission could become a race against time very quickly. One wrong move could alert the entire network. And once that happens, everyone disappears. Neil is starting to feel the weight of Joe's job. While Joe is dealing with spies, agents, and tactical operations, Neil is dealing with something much more personal: fear. And honestly, this may become one of the most important parts of Episode 4. Joe's family has already been targeted. Her daughters have already asked her to leave the CIA. They aren't simply complaining about their mother working too much. They're scared. They've seen what happens when Joe's enemies find their way home. And now Neil is beginning to understand that he can't simply separate Joe's job from their family life. For years, Joe has been able to maintain that separation. Work stays at work. Home stays home. But that illusion has been destroyed. The danger has already crossed the front door. And Neil has to live with the knowledge that his wife could bring that danger home again. Neil may become Joe's biggest problem at home. Joe has always been willing to accept personal risk because she believes the work is necessary. Neil doesn't necessarily see things the same way. That's going to create tension. Joe may look at the situation and think the answer is to finish the mission. Neil may look at the same situation and think the answer is to get away from it. Neither position is completely unreasonable, but they can't both win. That's what makes the family storyline so interesting. Joe isn't simply fighting an enemy anymore. She's fighting to convince her own family that what she does is worth the price. And Episode 4 appears ready to make that argument even harder. Secretary of State Edwin Mullins returns. Morgan Freeman's return as Secretary of State Edwin Mullins is another major piece of the puzzle. His presence suggests that the situation has reached a level where the highest levels of government need to become involved. That's important because the Russian infiltration we've seen isn't being treated as an isolated intelligence problem anymore. There are political consequences. If Russian assets really are operating inside the United States, particularly around people with significant influence, then exposing them could create an international crisis. The CIA can't simply arrest everybody. They need evidence. They need coordination. And they need to know how far the network reaches before they make their move. That's probably where Mullins comes in. His involvement could also create tension between the political side of the operation and Joe's more aggressive approach. Joe wants results. Washington wants control. Those two things don't always go together. The biggest question: who reacts to Joe's move? This is probably the biggest question heading into episode 4. Joe knows there's a Russian network. She knows it has access to important people. She knows the Russians have information about Lioness operations. And she knows someone was willing to come after her personally. So now she wants to turn the situation around. Instead of waiting for the Russians to make another move, she's going to force them to react. That could be the smartest thing Joe has done all season. It could also be the most dangerous, because when you deliberately expose part of an enemy's operation, you have to be prepared for the enemy to respond. And Joe already knows they're willing to take risks. Cruz and Joe's relationship could change. There's also the question of Cruz's place in Joe's operation. Cruz has become one of the show's most important lionesses, but she's also someone whose personal life has been increasingly complicated by the work. Her relationship with Carrillo has given us a different side of her. For once, Cruz has something outside the mission, but Lioness has never been particularly kind to people who try to separate their personal lives from their work. So seeing Cruz return to the tactical team could be a reminder that, no matter what she wants personally, the job still has a hold on her. And if Joe's next mission goes badly, Cruz could once again find herself paying the personal price. What to expect from Episode 4? Based on the confirmed synopsis and the episode material you provided, Episode 4 looks like it will bring several storylines together. Expect a Russian network investigation to become more active. Expect Joe to make a move designed to expose whoever is connected to the operation. Expect Cruz, Tucker, and the tactical team to become more involved. And expect the danger surrounding the McNamara family to continue escalating. But the most interesting part may be Neil, because Joe has spent most of her life accepting danger as part of the job. Neil hasn't, and now he's being forced to confront what that really means. The first 3 episodes have established the threat. Episode 4 looks like it's going to test what happens when Joe decides to fight back. And that's where things could get very messy. Joe may believe she's setting a trap for the Russians, but the Russians may already know they're being watched. And if that's the case, the question isn't whether somebody's going to walk into the trap. It's who built the trap in the first place. Because after everything that's happened, Joe can't afford to underestimate her enemy anymore. And with Cruz, Tucker, Mullins, and the rest of the team moving back into position, Murder Hornets looks like the episode where the investigation finally turns into a full-scale operation. The McNamara family is already feeling the consequences. Now Joe has to make sure the people hunting her don't get the chance to finish what they started.